Hey everyone! Today I've decided to do another ranking of Stephen King books. This time I'm just going to be ranking 50 Stephen King novels. So I did a video ranking 50 Stephen King books a few months ago, probably about 6 months ago now, and I'm not very happy with the way that turned out. Bad lighting and the voice was out of sync for half the video, so I'm pissed off about that. So I just decided to do it again. I'm going to make it a lot quicker this time. Just strictly novels. Let's just get into it now. Number 50, the worst Stephen King book for me is The Talisman. I've talked a lot on this channel about how much I don't like this book at all. Only good part about it is Wolf, but aside from that, it's too long, boring, shit. Number 49, Lisey's Story. This is another one that's just too long, it's too stupid, it's bloated, there's large chunks of backstory which I just don't care about, and I found the dialogue in this book to be some of the worst that King has ever written. Number 48, Rage. For a book that was pulled from print for being too closely related to real life events, I could not suspend my disbelief for this one. It was just too ridiculous, and it just wasn't even entertaining. It was just a boring nothing. And if this had never seen the light of day, no one would care. Number 47, Insomnia. This is a book that's very hit or miss with fans, and unfortunately for me, it was just a miss. I found it to be way too long. I didn't find the characters to be all that compelling, and I just found it to be a muddled mess of a story. Number 46, Fairy Tale. Currently the most recent Stephen King book to have been released, and I just didn't vibe with this one at all. It was, again, way too long. The first third was really strong, but once you actually got to the fantasy section of things, it just fell apart, and I've got to be honest, I struggled to finish this one. Number 45, Roadwork. This one has jumped considerably up from the last time I did my ranking, but I'm still not a very big fan of it. I think the idea and the concept behind it is really interesting, just not a fan of how it was pulled off. Number 44, The Regulators. This is one that's kind of grown on me a little bit over time, but I'm still not a very big fan of it at all. It's an absolute just bonkers book, and I like the idea of it, but it's too messy, it's too stupid, it's too hard to follow. Maybe I'll like it better on reread, but for now it's, I don't know. 43, From a Buick 8. This book, it has its moments, but it's just fine. 42, End of Watch. Again, it's fine. It's readable, it's enjoyable, pretty unsatisfying conclusion to the trilogy. 41, The Long Walk. This is one that I think is heavily overrated. I think it's a solid book. Nothing more, nothing less. It's fine. Number 40, Cycle of the Werewolf. I actually don't own a copy of this one. I really like this story, and I found it to be a lot of fun. The drawings are all great, but it can't get any higher up on the list than this. Number 39, Mr. Mercedes. Now, this is a turning point in the list, and this is just going to show you how good Stephen King is as a writer, because from this point on, everything else is excellent. And it's a good crime novel. It's thrilling, it's exciting, it's very enjoyable. It's just the characters just aren't as good as some of his other books. Number 38, Wolves of the Calla. I absolutely love this book. The only problem I had with it is its length. Basically, if you split this book into thirds, the first third is great. The second third is a huge chunk of backstory, which is what really sinks the book for me. I'm not a big fan of that section. And then the last third is great as well. The only problem I have is that the battle is a little bit anticlimactic, but I really love the vibes in this one, love the atmosphere, and I love some of the characters that are introduced. This is a fantastic book. Number 37, The Gunslinger. This is a bit of a rough read the first time around, but as I'm getting closer to finishing the tower, about halfway through book 7 at the moment, I really want to reread this one, and I'm really appreciating the concepts that it introduces, and that's why it's a bit higher up on the list. Number 36, The Dark Half. This is what I call like Stephen King's equivalent to a B-movie. Really gory, really fun time, but just not really a hell of a lot else there, aside from that. Number 35, The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon. I actually found this to be a really compelling book. I love the vibes and the atmosphere of it. You can really feel the mosquitoes that are in the book. And overall, I found this to be a really compelling little story. 34, The Running Man. I love this one. It's so fun. not really a hell of a lot going on with the characters, but as far as like an action dystopian novel, this one's great. And the last 20 pages in particular are absolute fire. Number 33, Dolores Claiborne. Really short book, really gripping story. It's all told, like there's no paragraph breaks, there's no chapter breaks, it's one big monologue from Dolores Claiborne's perspective. Really compelling story. I love the characters, I love what happens, and overall it's a really hard-hitting story that I think is quite underrated. Number 32, Wizard and Glass. Anyone that says that this book is unnecessary in the Dark Tower series is out of their minds. This puts everything that Roland does into perspective. I found it to be a really compelling story. Rhea is a fantastic villain, and overall it's one of those ones that just really hits you in the feels by the end of it. And I really got swept away into Wizard and Glass. The only reason it isn't higher up on the list is because it is very long, but it's a wonderful book. Number 31, The Outsider. This is a gnarly fucking book. The first 300 pages of this are brutal, they're upsetting, they're graphic, and they are so interesting. Only reason it isn't any higher up on the list is because I do feel like it runs out of steam in the last 200 pages. With that being said, I absolutely love The Outsider, and definitely check out the HBO series, because I think this is one of those books that works better on screen than on paper. One of those stories that works better on screen than on paper. Still a fantastic book. Number 30, Later. Really short, really fun, bite-sized fun, suspenseful, compelling, great characters. Really just, it's such an easy read. Number 29, Rose Madder. This is an underrated book in my opinion. This is a really powerful story. Rose is a great character. And overall, I actually really enjoyed where it goes in the second half. It's absolutely bonkers, you have to be there for it. But if you're there for it, you're going to have a great time. Number 28, Song of Susanna. This book is wild. I do think it's the first time in the Dark Tower series that it actually kind of reaches a bit beyond its grasp. It takes some chances and it goes some places, and I think for the most part they all pay off, and this is a really action-packed, entertaining book, and I loved it. Number 27, Cujo. A really intense book. You can feel the heat in this one, and overall this is just an excellent book. There's not really a hell of a lot there below the surface, but dog with rabies, killing people, it's tense. Oh, fuck. Number 26, Under the Dome. Fantastic book. Really good. Love the characters, love the setup, love the concept, but the ending, like the last 100 pages of this thing really let it down for me. But overall, I can still really enjoy this book, even if I know that the ending is absolute dog shit. Number 25, The Institute. I actually really enjoyed this one. I read it really quickly. I love the characters. I found the overall setup to be familiar, but really well executed. Number 24, Gerald's Game. This is not familiar at all. This is a unique concept that shouldn't work at all, but somehow does brilliantly. And that scene, there's a couple of that scenes actually, but the one closer to the end of the book made me feel sick reading it. Love it. Number 23, Cell, an action-packed take on the zombie genre. This one is so underrated. I absolutely adored this book. I think it's just nearly perfect. It's so fun. Number 22, The Eyes of the Dragon, a book that I liked way more than I was expecting to. I was like, fantasy, castles, wizards, bullshit, what the fuck ever. And I got into it. And this book is tense, it moves fast, and I absolutely loved it. And it gives us more insight into Randall Flagg and just makes him so much scarier than he already was. Number 21, The Shining. This book is awesome. It's The Shining, so it's automatically great. I do prefer the movie, but that doesn't mean that this book is bad at all, because this one is an absolute classic. Well worth a read. I don't even know what to say. It's The Shining. Number 20, Thinner. An action-packed, entertaining little body horror book with a really sick comedy side to it as well, especially in that ending. Number 19, Doctor Sleep. Might be a little bit unpopular to prefer this to The Shining, but I absolutely adored this book. I love the characters, I love the direction the story went into. I find this book to be so compelling. It's so good. It's so good. Yeah, number 18, Billy Summers. This book was a surprise. I thought, assassination Stephen King book, it'll be good, but like, it just went places, it took some turns, it made a few real hard lefts, and I just found this to be one of his best character-driven stories that he's ever written, and the final 50 pages or so are just perfect. Number 17, The Green Mile. This is one of those ones that again, it's like The Shining. I don't know what to say about it. It's The Green Mile. It's so good. The characters are amazing. The setting is great. It's so different from everything else. But it's so good. Number 16, Finders Keepers. Far and away the best in the Bill Hodges trilogy. This one is tense. I love the setup. I love how it's all just like, a couple of seemingly unrelated stories, and then in the end they just spiral together and just crash with this big explosion of action. I love Finders Keepers. It is bonkers. Number 15, The Drawing of the Three. One of those books, again, that shouldn't work, but does. Like, this one is action-packed, the world hopping is absurd, like, in concept, but it works, and we just get introduced to some of the greatest characters that Stephen King has ever written, and this is a perfect book. Everything from here, I'm gonna say, is perfect. Number 14, Carrie, his first book. It's an eeny-weeny little book, but it is amazing. It packs such an almighty punch. It doesn't take long to get through. It's action-packed, and it is scary, it's depressing, and it is insanely good. Number 13, Firestarter. This one's pretty similar to Carrie in concept, but it goes on a completely own different direction. It is wild. It's an unpredictable story. Like, you just don't know where it's gonna go. Like, the second half is so much different to the first half. The characters are great. The villain was one of my favourite villains. This book's good. Number 12, Desperation. I know we talked about the, not predecessor, but companion novel, The Regulators, way back earlier in the list. This one is just so much better. It's long, but it is so good. The creep factor is just absurd. It is gross. It is grotesque. It is gnarly, and overall, Desperation is just one of the best things he's ever written and one of the most underrated. Number 11, Misery. It's Misery. Number 10, It. It's It. It's perfect. Even the ending, I don't care. I don't care. It works. Okay? It works. Number 9, The Wastelands. This is my favourite Dark Tower book. It's perfectly paced. I think the action is incredible. Again, like The Drawing of the Three, I don't understand how he actually made this thing work, but it does. And that ending left my heart racing. Fuck yes. Number 8, Pet Sematary. This one is full of atmosphere, just creepy shit. It's depressing, it is depraved, it's sick, it's twisted, it is insane, and I love every word of this one. Number 7, The Stand. This one, I think, I'm in disbelief that he made a book like this. This long is never boring. It's an amazing story. I love, again, the atmosphere, the setup of it is amazing. And there's the directions that it goes and the overall morals of just good versus evil. Oh, it makes me happy. It excites me just to even think about this one. I love The Stand. Number 6, Christine. Huge fucking book about a killer car. The characters are great. This book is gory. It's got so much atmosphere. It's scary as hell. I love the structure of it even. I know that's a complaint for some people, but I think it's executed brilliantly. Christine is one of his best. 5, 11/22/63. This is one of those ones that you can recommend to anyone that likes to read. And it's perfectly paced, I think. I think the characters are great. I love the concept of it. I think that he manages to make time travel what is normally a trope that is just filled with holes and inconsistencies. He manages to rope it in as best as you possibly could. And this book is just perfect. Number 4, Revival. This book is the just most horrifying and disgusting thing that I've ever read. The most disgusting story I've ever seen told, whether that's in a book or a movie. It's gnarly, but it's full of heart. The music side of it is great. I just love the structure of this one, how this book takes place over like 6 decades. Oh my god, this book is amazing and absolutely one of the best. Number 3, Needful Things. I don't think I've ever felt as exhilarated by a book as I have when reading this one. It's slow for the start. It's really, really damn slow. But once the chaos starts, I don't know. I'm this book is fucking mental. I love it. I love it. It's so good. Number 2, The Dead Zone. I just recently reread this one and it just reaffirmed my love for it. This book is amazing. It's so bizarrely structured. Again, that's a common theme with these books in the top 10 is that the structure is really abnormal. And this one, the characters are perfect. The themes that it explores are great. The supernatural is woven perfectly with the realistic. It's a tragic book. The ending is just suspenseful as hell, but also so moving. I can totally understand why this is some people's favorite, and would not be surprised if this jumped to my favorite at some point in the future. But for now, number 1 for me is still Salem'S Lot. This book is one of the scariest books that I have ever experienced, probably second scariest to Revival. That being said, as far as classic gothic horror goes, you can't get better than this one. The villain is scary, the world is so perfectly built, you know the town of Salem's Lot inside out, and once shit starts going down, it is creepy. This is one of those ones where I've actually had to stop reading because I'm like, oh my god, I don't think I can deal with this shit. This is just an amazing book, and for his second book, I don't understand how you can write something this good. This book is so good. Anyway, that's my ranking of 50 Stephen King novels. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know what you think of my list. I hope this video is better than that last one that I did a few months back. Anyway, I'll see you all later. Bye.